All right, I'd like to call to order this Ottawa County Board of Commissioners meeting. The date is Tuesday, October 26th. Our invocation today is by Commissioner Terpstra, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Justin Roebuck. Please rise.
Bow your heads with me. Dear Lord in heaven, thank you for all the things you've given us. Thank you for this beautiful weather on this beautiful fall day. Thank you for the safety that you gave us to be here in attendance today. Can you just be with the farmers in Ottawa County, Lord, as we are in fall harvest, make it so that they have a really good harvest. Can you also be with the safety of the first responders in Ottawa County, and also with the servicemen and women home and abroad. Lord, can you just be with the Ottawa County residents and staff, and can you just be with us in the wisdom for this board meeting. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Garcia. Here. Mr. Baumann. Mr. Zylstra.
Here.
Mr. Dannenberg.
Here.
Mr. Meppeling. Here. Mr. Terpstra.
Here.
Mr. Holtvluwer.
Present.
Mr. DeYoung.
Here.
Mr. Kyers.
Here.
Mr. Bergman.
Here.
And Mr. Fensky.
Here.
Mr. Chair, we have quorum.
Thank you. Next thing is presentation of petitions and communications. Anything from you, Justin?
None from us.
Okay. Then I have, I've asked Judge Fyan to come forward and give a brief, whatever.
You tell me what I'm doing.
Hey, what are you going to call it?
Adoption Day?
Yeah,
Is that
adoption.
what it is?
Yes.
Okay. This is, I'm sorry, I have no prepared remarks. This is something that the chairperson asked me to do 5 minutes ago. So we are having about the 20th in a row Adoption Day. It's on the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, which is the 22nd or 23rd. It's an annual event. And we host this event in order to kind of highlight adoption as a wonderful option for families if you want to enlarge your family. It's also something that's very important in terms of the child welfare system, because sometimes parental rights of parents are terminated, and then we try to look for permanent homes for the children. And so we need adoptive homes. And so this is a thing that is, there's actually National Adoption Day, and then our Supreme Court has passed a resolution encouraging courts to celebrate Michigan Adoption Day. And so that's when we're doing it. It's always been in my courtroom here in West Olive, and the courtroom is usually packed to probably something exceeding its legal capacity, and crowded public spaces are not a good idea these days. So we're not having it there. We're having it in Grand Haven, and we have plans to try to space people out as best we can, use more than one courtroom, bring people in groups and that kind of thing. But I don't have detailed information about the agenda because, like I say, the chairman asked me to say this 5 minutes ago. So I just want to let all of you know that, and invite any of you who can attend, please attend and lend your support to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
That
The
was
reason
it,
I
right?
asked him to come forward is because he's going to be here anyway to give public comment.
Yes.
But I know this is coming up, and this is something that has been near and dear to his heart for many years. And I know that many of the commissioners have also participated in this. And so I just wanted to highlight the fact that that's happening again. And that's November 23rd, I believe, correct?
The Tuesday before Thanksgiving.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
can get you the details, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, okay, thank you. All right, the next thing is public comment. This is one of 2 times that anyone from the public can speak regarding any issue that is either on the agenda or before the commission, or anything else that they might like to speak to us on. They have 1 minute to make their presentation before the commission. And is there a list that we have?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
And first in public comment is Mark Fyan.
Mr. Fyan?
Okay. So I could have just stayed here, but anyway, I will try to stay within a minute. I just am here today to commend the board for its previous firmness in standing up to pressure that I know you've received over the last few months to disregard recommendations that you're getting from our public health department. including firing the public health director, which you probably don't have authority to do anyway. But I encourage you to stand firm with that. I know that these are difficult times, but a pandemic is about us. It's not about me, my rights, my body, my choice, my children, my decision, my. It's about all of us. And the difficulty with that is presented if we fail to recognize that stopping the spread is what we need to do. And so if you have an opportunity to consider this issue of vaccine mandates, I also want to let you know I'm in favor of that. And I'm one public official who you will not get pushback from if you decided to do that. Okay. I have encouraged all of our employees to get vaccinated, and I'm just about out of time, but we're at about 70% and hopefully still rising in terms of employees with the court.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, who's next?
Next is David Barnowski.
My name is David Barnowski. I vote in Port Sheldon and I live in West Olive, and that's unfortunate. I came to oppose your action item number 6, the resolution opposing a vaccine mandate from the federal government. I believe a week ago, there was nothing on the agenda of the Planning and Policy Committee about it. There's still nothing no minutes about it to say who nominated, where it came from. I can think of I looked in, there are at least 2 other committees that I believe would be better places for an original jurisdiction for that resolution. And you have a policy that you adopted on July 27th. Any proposed resolution, motion, or ordinance that does not pertain to the board's statutory authority is out of order. So I will ask that you either strike that from your agenda or rule it out of order if it's moved.
Next is Stephen Murphy.
Hi, my name is Stephen Murphy. I live in Holland, work in Holland, and I want to express my support for the position of Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in Ottawa County. I thought I had a few minutes, but a minute I'll have to work into that. So where I'm coming from is 1 Corinthians 12. That talks about parts of the body all needing to work together in order for the whole body to work at its best. When I think about how that looks in our community, I think that a good test or measure of how healthy a community is how well people are thriving. Who's thriving? Is everyone in the community thriving or just certain groups of people? When I was in high school, I played soccer. I broke my ankle right before soccer tryouts. And so me and my family put in time, energy, resources. We sought expert advice from a doctor to make sure I could be healed so I could contribute again to my soccer team at the best of my ability. And so I don't expect a director of DEI to fix all of the problems we have regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion. But I think it's a position that's really important to help make sure people in our community who have not been given a chance to thrive can have that chance.
Thanks, Stephen.
Yep.
Next is Martin Hilila. Apologize if I
Hilala.
mispronounced that name.
Hilala.
Hilila.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Marty Hillowa, and I'm from Grand Haven. And I want to commend and congratulate and encourage this board for resisting uninformed pressure regarding mask use. And even more, I'd like to take this chance to thank and commend our Ottawa County Health Department and local school boards for their stance. Those who are doing their own research on this aren't listening to our national or state or county health experts. And they certainly aren't reading the New England Journal of Medicine or the Lancet in their spare time. They're Googling masks are a fraud and clicking on what comes up, and that does not make you a medical expert. I also commend our public servants who are standing strong and encouraging everyone to support also our local election officials who are facing similar uninformed pressure from many of the same sources. Thank you for this opportunity, and I only regret that I wasn't here in September.
Thanks, Marty.
Next is Mick Bricker.
Hello, Mick Bricker, and I'm from Spring Lake. So today I'm going to take off my campaign hat and put on my citizen of Spring Lake hat. And I just wanted to address the commissioners Chairman, that I still believe that the mask mandates and now the new mandates with the virus inoculations, if you will, are go against the rights and freedoms and privileges of the Ottawa County residents, Spring Lake residents, those of the state of Michigan and also the United States. This is a lot bigger than follow the science. This truly is an erosion of our freedoms and our rights. And my greatest fear is this will continue. This is only the beginning. Thank you for what you guys are doing again. I would encourage you to push back. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Who's next?
So that's the first five, Mr.
Okay.
Chair. Are we,
Keep going.
okay, we have another 6 or so. Lori Grassmid is next.
So my daddy comes straight from Ottawa County. As of 2020, there are 296,000 residents in Ottawa County. As of yesterday, 498 COVID deaths have occurred since the beginning of the pandemic. This is 0.17% of the population. Does that warrant an illegal mandate standing on imminent danger statute? Does that warrant segregating small children who actually are at 0%? Is that imminent danger? That means that you believe that death or serious physical harm can occur immediately. But being you are all in this room, it is very clear that you do not feel that we are in imminent danger. Since the board is the employer of the health department, it is time for you to ask her to do her job. The imminent danger statute she stands on is also states that she must incorporate her findings. Who is in imminent danger? What are the findings? Have they been personally notified by the statute as the statute states? Shouldn't an employer hold their employee accountable? Do men actually believe that 0.17% is imminent danger?
Thanks, Laurie.
Next is Gretchen Cosby.
You know what? Some of them are out in the hall, so I think what we'll do is we'll let them come in later and we'll take it up at the end of the meeting, okay? The rest of them? Fair enough? Okay,
That
all right,
works.
all right. Okay, the next thing is approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion, please? Moved and supported. Comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Actions and reports, consent resolutions, Mr. Fenske.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will make the motion to accept consent resolutions 1 through 3.
Support. Been moved and supported. Comments or questions? Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
Mr. Holflor,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink,
Yes.
Mr. Fenske,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
and Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Public hearings, none. Action items from planning policy, Mr. DeYoung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Regarding the subrecipient policy, I move to approve the subrecipient monitoring policy for review and comment, first reading.
It's been moved and supported. John, you want to just give us, I should have mentioned this to you before. You want to just give us an idea what this is about so the public knows what this is about?
And Karen will correct me if I'm wrong, but I know it's when we have money that we are, from state or federal sources that we then send on to what we call subrecipients. They have to follow certain rules and guidelines in order to ensure that they're properly spending those state and federal grant funds. And so this policy basically says that they will do that. And, we will evaluate each of their risk for non-compliance with the rules of the grant and look at previous audits and so forth to see if they have a track record of following those types of orders and enter into a memorandum of understanding that outlines their roles and responsibilities to properly spend those grant funds.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, federal only.
Okay, all right. Any comments or questions? Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Holflor,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink,
Yes.
Mr. Fensky,
Yes.
and Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding the statutory requirements for local units of government, I move to approve and authorize the board chairperson and clerk register to sign the resolution to waive the statutory requirements for local units of government to submit proposed township ordinance, proposed zoning text changes, and rezoning request per section 307 of the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act. Support.
Been moved and supported. Comments or questions? Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Fensky,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink,
Yes.
Mr. Holflor,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
and Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding specialized services, I move to approve and authorize the board chairperson and clerk register to sign the master agreement number 2022-0121 with the Michigan Department of Transportation and sign the resolution authorizing the current and future office holders of the chairperson of Ottawa County Board of Commissioners and the Ottawa County Clerk Register to execute contracts under master agreement 2022-0121 with MDOT on behalf of Ottawa County.
Been moved and supported. Comments or questions? Any questions?
No, I'm sorry.
All right. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Fensky,
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink,
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Holflor,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
and Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding the semi-annual county newsletter, I move to approve the issuance of a semi-annual newsletter that would be mailed to all households in Ottawa County at an approximate cost of $92,800.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Comments or questions? Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Holflor,
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink,
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
No.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Fensky,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
and Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding live streaming, I move to approve the live streaming of meetings of the Planning and Policy, Finance and Administration, Health and Human Services, and Talent and Recruitment Committees, while requiring all public comments at committee meetings to be submitted in person. Support.
Moved and supported. Comments or questions? Mr. Garcia?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I do have some concerns. I've been the chair of the Talent and Recruitment Committee for a couple of years now. And we have run into situations where we're not always able to fill all of the vacancies in our committees and boards at the community level. My concern is that if we live stream these, and I believe in transparency, I'm just questioning what impact will this have on already a shortage of applicants, and now knowing that they're going to be live streamed as we speak with them and as we decide whether they will be approved or not approved. I guess I compared this to HR live streaming all of their interviews for staff positions. And if Doug is online, I guess I'd like to ask what the legality is behind this, or what kind of barriers that we may run into.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I just want to,
We'll ask Doug to
Okay.
respond to it in just a minute.
Okay.
Go ahead.
yeah, I believe the conversation was just for not for the interview process, but simply for the committee meeting. So I think there's three of us, Randy, myself, and yourself on
Okay.
the interview process, that would not be streamed.
Okay.
It would just be the committee meeting.
Okay.
And Doug
Yeah.
Vanessa can pick up from here, but
Yeah. I mean, I still would like to hear the response from Doug if he's online.
And I think legally you could live stream the interviews. For the reason I think, Frank, you're concerned, I would not recommend it. I just think it creates an intimidating type situation. But legally, I don't see a bar to it. I just think it's not normal, and I think it would chill recruitment.
I agree with Frank. I think that's a good point, Frank. And I think as talent recruit committee, if you can make that decision there, that you just make a committee meetings and interviews, that you wouldn't do that.
Okay. So as to I understand this, this would not be for when we're actually holding interviews for positions then. Okay.
That's correct. The interview subcommittee would not be live streamed. It was just as Commissioner Zylstra said, it would be just the actual talent and recruitment committee would be live streamed, not the interviews by the subcommittee.
Okay, that's fine.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm kind of what Frank said. From a health and human services standpoint, I have a concern with sometimes, and it's sitting on that committee, I can think of when Dr. Heidel was on that committee and he would give us reports regarding various, and this is before COVID, okay, not COVID related, but things like, could be like tuberculosis, if there was a case or whatever. Now we're talking about that, whereas he's reporting it, but what I don't want to create is a hysteria over something that is what his job is to do, is report it to our committee so we can discuss it. But then it's not that you're trying to keep stuff secret from the public. That's not it at all, because they're always welcome at the meetings. Okay. But it's how recordings of a meeting like that, and then snippets of those recordings can be used, and not in its entirety. And I have a concern from a health and human services standpoint regarding broadcasting of that as well. So.
Anyone else? Ready to vote? Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Sir, Mr. Fenske,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
No.
Mr. Holflord,
No.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink,
No.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
and Mr. Bergman.
No. What's next?
Motion passes.
Last, regarding the resolution opposing vaccine mandates, I move to approve and authorize the board chairperson and clerk register to sign the resolution opposing a vaccine mandate from the federal government.
Supported. Been moved and supported. Comments or questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make an amendment to the resolution.
Want to make an amendment to it?
Yes, I would like to add state government and our local county government.
Support. All right, somebody supported that? Okay. Yep, all right. So comments or questions regarding the amendment to the resolution?
I guess I need to know exactly what that means. Are we talking about? I don't understand what we're talking about, but let's be quite honest, because I believe that the resolution right now is in opposition to the OSHA mandate, which is for employers of 100 employees or more. So I guess I'm trying to understand how the state and the local factor falls
It
in
would be
there.
my understanding, if we included the state government and local government, that if the state of Michigan came down with a vaccine mandate, then we would oppose that, as well as if our local health department came down with a vaccine mandate, that would we would be opposed to that also.
Okay, I've got some further comments later on, but one of my major concerns right now is that we're going to be voting on a resolution on a possible federal mandate. Now we're asking to include also possible future state mandates, and even now possible future local mandates. That's a lot of gray area for me, to be honest. And I will have concerns about it. Like that, I've got other comments, but I'll be quiet now.
Lansing State House has already passed this resolution opposing. The House has already opposed this. The Senate has not, but the House has. So I don't know that we need to include the state if they've already opposed this motion.
All right,
Mr. Chairman.
go ahead.
So with the House, respectfully, Commissioner Holford, with the House opposing it and not the Senate, that doesn't do anything. It's not a law, you know? So basically, by including the state with the federal government, including our, the county as well, you know, we fall in line with, and I sent you guys an email as well, that the West Coast Chamber of Commerce, the business community from Ottawa County, is also in favor of this resolution, as well as they stepped out and signed with, and I forgot, I didn't write the link down, but the link I had sent each of you that they had signed on with that as well. So from a business standpoint, I think our business leaders are looking for the same thing as they employ people. We employ over 100 people. Okay. And we're showing that we take care of what we're talking about. Is our resolution is about our employees, that we do recognize the fact that they have a choice, and that we are allowing them to have that choice. We can encourage, and I would strongly encourage everybody to get the vaccination. Okay. And I'm not afraid to say it when I say I've been vaccinated, right? I did it. All right. But I encourage everybody to do it. But I also think it's a choice, and we don't want to lose quality staff from our county, because we have great employees from the ground all the way up. And we don't want to lose a single one, because if they had to be forced to make that. So I think this takes a nice stance and goes a long way in that. And it also shows to the other leaders of the community, the other business leaders of the community, that we're in favor of that, or that we stand with them as well.
Okay, we're going to vote on the amendment. Okay,
Well, if we're going to do that, Mr. Bergman, I guess I'd like to, share my other comments. Why implement board policies to only wordsmith a resolution in order to circumvent the same policy that we approved 4 months ago as a board? I don't understand that. In July of this year, this board voted on this policy. And while it was not unanimous, it was overwhelmingly the majority of the population. And the policy reads, the Ottawa County Board of Commissioners exercises limited governmental power. As a result, the board may only entertain substantive, and I don't know how to pronounce that word quite right, resolutions that pertain to the specific administrative or legislative authority conferred to it by the state statute. Any proposed resolution, motion, or ordinance that does not pertain to the board's statutory authority is out of order. The only exception is this policy is honorary resolutions that recognize extraordinary community or county service of particular individuals, officers, or employees. Last week, the Planning and Policy Committee requested corporate counsel to draft a resolution. A resolution, I believe, goes against the intent of the board policy. As a former classroom teacher and school administrator, or even as a parent, I can tell you that the fastest way to lose control of your classroom is to put up rules and then fail to implement them and enforce them. Our own rules, basically. I believe one of the main reasons why this policy was put in place was to support and continue the work of this board without personal or political influence, allowing us to focus on our constitutional duties. The original motion, in my opinion, is out of order, goes against the intent of this board policy. The amendment goes even a step further, in my opinion. While this resolution may now be policy acceptable after it was wordsmithed, it will create, in my opinion, confusion within our residents. Some of us are already receiving emails and phone calls. It will bring into question our transparency of this board. Residents are already asking, what's the motive behind this? The timing of this resolution. Some are even calling it hypocritical, especially when some of our major local businesses are already implementing the mandate. I don't believe any of us are naive enough to believe that a resolution of opposition from Ottawa County in Michigan will change the minds of anyone in Washington, D.C. I'm not done, I'm almost done. Every other motion on this agenda has a tangible end result behind it, except this one. I'll stop there.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I really appreciate what Commissioner Garcia has to say. As the only person who did vote against that policy on resolutions, I want to say that, we as a board cannot be making policies in July. And then in my mind, and I think, Frank spoke well, either writing a resolution that just skirts it or in my mind actually breaks it. I don't think that sets good precedent. So I appreciate everything that Frank said and, I second it.
Yes. I feel compelled to explain how we got here today for this. Okay, and as chairman of planning and policy, I just want to recap how we got here. 2 weeks ago, Commissioner Mepling brought this up. We had at the board meeting some lively discussion. At that time, it was decided by this board to send it on to 2 other subcommittees. It went to Health and Human Services first for discussion. They had lively discussion on Health and Human Services. Health and Human Services unanimously decided to send it on. And we discussed it at Planning and Policy. We had a lively discussion of that and trying to be respectful to everybody. So at Planning and Policy, we unanimously voted to send this on to the Board of Commissioners. So it wasn't something that was just kind of cooked up or made up. We had lively debates and we continued to move it on forward with unanimous support. So it wasn't like I say, it wasn't just came out of the clear blue air. I also want to say, while I'm talking a minute, that I know we're going to be voting on the amendment. I want to talk about the resolution as a whole, and I want to be crystal clear. I am all for people to getting their vaccine. I am encouraging people to get their vaccine. I'm encouraging people to educate others. Just today, just this morning, I heard about a guy who's in the hospital for 29 days because he chose not to get the shot. But he chose that. I didn't. I'm trying to educate people that I believe it's important to get that shot. Okay, it was important for me to get it. My wife got it. We're moving forward and we feel confident. But I do not feel comfortable that whether it's the federal government, whether it's the state government or the Ottawa County Health Department to come forward and mandate anybody that they have to get this shot.
Anyone else? This is just on the amendment.
Mr. Chairperson, perhaps, again, our corporation counsel's on the Zoom and whether he wants to weigh in terms of whether the amendments to the resolution comply or don't comply with our board policy.
Yep. Let's hear from Doug Vanessen.
All right. I think the amendment is out of order. I think the amendment violates our policy. I don't think the underlying resolution does. And let me be clear. The original policy was designed to say the board is going to restrict its motions and actions to things that it does or will not do. In other words, the exercise of its statutory authority or to comment on legislation that affects the board's statutory authority. So if there is and I believe there is legislation right now in front of the Michigan legislature to increase Board of Commissioner terms from 2 years to 4 years. That is an appropriate subject for board commentary. The underlying resolution focuses on a particular action that would affect the board, namely a vaccine mandate or testing mandate in the alternative that the federal government is right now considering. I think it's within the policy for the board to offer its opinion on that, and that's how I've drafted it. Now, the motion to amend, not only is there on the county level, let's start with that. You decide whether there's going to be a vaccine mandate on your employees at the county level. You've decided not to. So recommending to yourselves that you stay with your current status of not doing a vaccine mandate makes no sense, and I think is out of order on its face, because no one is suggesting that you adopt a vaccine mandate at present. With the state, not only is there nothing in front of state government right now that would direct a vaccine mandate to Ottawa County, but the legislature and the governor have agreed in the budget bill. I don't know why the House is considering something again. They considered this, they put language in the appropriation bill, and both bodies approved it, and Governor Whitmer agreed that as a condition of that budget, she would not impose a vaccine mandate, or her administration. Now, I don't know that that's binding on state government because it's in a budget bill. That's the issue. The issue we have with the mask prohibition. But nevertheless, both houses have said in our legislature, we're not going to do it. And the governor has said, we're not going to do it. And they've pledged to do that in the budget. So recommending, again, that they continue with their agreement, I think violates the policy, because there's nothing in front of state government right now to even suggest that they're going to do that. So, you know, that's where I think things fall on our policy and what's consistent and what isn't.
Thanks, Doug.
Can I, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Mr. Van Essen, what if a compulsory vaccination or weekly testing would require some action on behalf of the Board of Commissioners? So as we are employers or co-employers, would we have to develop some sort of a system by which possible discipline or other areas that would have to be addressed with the employees if in fact a mandate came down from either local health department and or the state? Would that fall in our wheelhouse? I think so.
Well, yeah, but there's nothing, if you're going to start passing resolutions on things that aren't being considered, you'll never stop. I mean, the intent of the policy, and I think the language is, you can offer commentary in the situation where there is a body that has authority over you, that would ask you to implement something. That is going on right now in the federal government. Not only is it not going on in state or at the county level, but you control the county level, or Lisa Stefanowski, and she is pledged to your committee that she's not going to enter any mandatory COVID-19 vaccine on either Ottawa County or anyone else in the county. So you would be merely expressing your opinion when there's nothing that's before either the county or the state that is active at this point. And it's mere commentary, and mere commentary does violate the policy. But Commissioner, you put your finger on why the federal government, it is ripe for your commentary, because if OSHA goes through with this, my OSHA will pick it up and you're going to have to do something about it. I don't know how detailed the regulation is going to be. I don't know if it's going to specify what you have to do in discipline or not. You would probably have to bargain with some of your units about discipline if there is a mandate. So yes, there's a lot of action that would be required of you if the Biden administration goes through with this proposal to mandate that Ottawa County and other employers over 100 employees mandate a vaccine or require weekly testing. So in that sense, commentary is right.
Doug, a couple of questions. As a board of commissioners, it's always been my understanding that we don't have 100 employees as a board. We don't have 1,000 employees. We've got one employee, and that's John Shea currently. So how are we as a board voting on a resolution of a staff of one?
Well, legally, Commissioner, that's not true.
Okay.
Legally, the Board of Commissioners under Michigan law is the employer of county personnel. With respect to the elected officials, like the sheriff's personnel, you're co-employer. So Commissioner Chair Bergman's signature should be on all collective bargaining agreements, including those with the Sheriff's Department. So the commissioners are co-employers with the elected officials, and they are the employer for the county personnel who aren't working for an elected official.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Council Vanessa, just a quick question. On the third whereas, not only are we saying we oppose the federal government mandate, but we're also saying that we're supporting our employees' choice on whether or not to be vaccinated. The way I read that is that we're not going to enforce a possible mandate. Is that true?
No, I think, again, the most you can do here is comment. If the federal government mandates the vaccine or testing, you're going to have to implement it. And that's why at some level the resolution is ripe, because you're asking the federal government not to do this, because if they do it, it will have consequences on Ottawa County. It really, that whereas is just the flip side, right? It's the flip side of why we don't want a mandate, a requirement, is that we are not anti-vaccine. We are positive as to the choice of each employee to decide whether or not they want it. That's what that whereas is saying. But it would be out of order for this board. It would be illegal for this board to pass a resolution saying we're not going to obey the federal government if it orders Ottawa County to enforce a mass mandate, or I'm sorry, a vaccination mandate on its employees, just like it would have been illegal for us not to follow the state's mask mandate last year. And we had discussions about OSHA and complying with OSHA's requirements. We complied last year, even though, some of us didn't agree with, those directives, but they were the, and we had to follow them. If this goes through federal government and then my OSHA, it will be binding on us.
Okay, thank you for the presentation.
Mr. Chairman, I've got something. I think we're reading way too much into this resolution. All we're doing today we're making a statement saying that we're opposing. If the federal government talks about this and tries to push this through, if the state government tries to, if the local health department tries to do this, we're just putting them on notice. We're opposing it. We're not micromanaging it. We're not telling anybody what to do. We're making a statement. We're taking a stand today. Where do we stand on these mandates? Okay, and it's a personal choice. And I respect each and every one of you equally. But today, for me, I want to take a stand. I don't want to micromanage one person. We got great personnel here in Ottawa County. But I want to take a stand that I'm opposed for anybody going on doing this on our Ottawa County residents, the great staff we have here in Ottawa County. All I'm saying today is I'm opposed to the mandate.
If I can respond to that, Mr. Bergman.
Go ahead, Mr. Garcia.
My objection is not a political or a personal view. My no vote, and I'm telling you right now that I will be voting no on this. My no vote is strictly on the base that I believe this goes against our own board policy. And only because we wordsmithed it, we were able to work our way around it. Will we continue to do that in the future now so that we can get by with other resolutions? Once we do this, we open the floodgates for other resolutions as well. I need us to consider this closely. I understand what Commissioner DeYoung is saying, but if we really wanted to do something, then we would say we will not comply, which is illegal, by the way, as Doug told us. Us objecting to it, I'm sorry, it's a bite without any teeth. And in my opinion, it's lip service. And I don't do that well. So I will be voting no on this, on both amendments, the amendment and the resolution.
If I could just jump in here, I do think the amendment is out of order. The chair has to rule on that. If the chair rules it's inconsistent with the policy, you can waive the policy for one action. But to be fair to the policy, you have to waive it if you're going to support the amendment, because it is pure commentary as to the state and county. And I think Commissioner DeYoung, with all due respect, taking a stand or just making comments is prohibited by the policy. You can take a stand, you can offer commentary, but you can't do it consistent with your policy. So you would have to suspend that policy to do the amendment. Again, the underlying resolution, I think, is a matter of order, is within the policy, and therefore the chair cannot rule that out of order. I've opined on that, but I think the amendment violates your policy, and the chair should not consider the amendment unless the policy is lifted or stayed for that amendment to be considered.
Okay, so I haven't had a chance to to give my 2 cents worth, so I'm going to give my 2 cents worth. So, often I've said COVID keeps giving, and it keeps on giving and giving and giving, right? And it continues to be controversial in our community. Whether there will be vaccine mandates required of employees or not, we don't know. There are some, perhaps. Board of Commissioners has a policy against making comments on issues that don't directly involve the Board of Commissioners and its activities. Whether the county has a vaccine mandates for its employees does involve the Commissioner's powers as the employer or co-employer of county personnel. Ottawa County has no intentions to impose a vaccine mandate on its employees or co-employees and has not imposed such a mandate. The Health Department has stated that it has no intention to impose COVID vaccine mandates on anyone or any employer. The governor and state legislators have struck a deal that there will be no COVID vaccine mandates on anyone or any employee in Michigan state government. The federal government is considering a vaccine mandate or weekly testing if an employee doesn't want to be vaccinated, and imposing that on all large employees in the public and private sectors. Since the county has no intention of voluntarily imposing a COVID mandate and has not done so, it's obvious that the county is opposed to the federal government forcing the county as an employer to impose a mandate or weekly testing. There are different opinions on the commission as to whether it is wise or useful to make recommendations to the federal government, but no one should construe opinions on that issue to mean that a commissioner is in favor of vaccine mandates on employers. These issues are complicated. There are many players involved in these issues. The Board of Commissioners advocates respect for all positions on these issues. And I believe that we should not entertain the motion that you've made. And so I think we should go forward with the original motion as it's presented to us. And I'm going to ask Justin, since we've really spoken to that adequately, I believe, to call the vote, the vote on the original motion.
Okay, so just to be clear, Mr. Chair, the amended motion is ruled out of order.
Yes.
Okay. And we'll,
I'm not an expert at that, okay? Is that out of order?
Yes.
Yes.
Is the amendment out of order?
Yes.
Now the motion was made and seconded,
Yes, it's out of order.
but I'm trying to get confirmation.
I can't speak to whether it was out of order, but I know that Robert's rules does allow the chair to rule something out of order.
Yes.
But if we want to get further clarification from our legal counsel, then.
Doug, you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, the chair has the right to make that decision, and he has made it. You can, someone could move to reverse the chair. But the chair, that would be another motion.
Do you want to make that motion?
I don't understand. To reverse the, Doug, explain.
Yeah.
The chair.
Versus the chair, just make a motion to put it back.
Yeah, so the chair has ruled. The chair is presiding over the proceeding. And so he or she has the right to make that ruling, but the body is ultimately in control of your agenda. And if you reverse the ruling of the chair, that is your option. It's kind of like you have a policy and you could waive the application of your policy to the amendment that the chair has ruled out of order. And if you do that, then of course, if the rule is lifted for this one motion, it goes forward. It's not out of order anymore. But right now you have a policy And the chair has ruled that the amendment would violate the policy. And so you have to do something with that if you want to go forward. And to go forward, you would really need to reverse the ruling of the chair and amend your policy to allow the amendment to the original resolution to go through. And that would be a motion that someone could make at this point.
Get the wording correct. Can I say so moved or must? It's just said. I would like to make that a motion, what Doug just said.
Second it. All right. it's been
Just for
moved and seconded.
clarification, and I guess I'm going to ask Mr. Van Essen this, because we've had a lot of previous discussion, and I need to go back to parliamentary college to get some of the my P's and Q's here, but just to make sure, this is a new motion on the agenda. So is this all pertinent to, in other words, do we need a 2/3 vote to get this motion approved?
That's right.
I think you do. I think you do need a 2/3 vote to suspend your policy and reverse the chair.
Because it wasn't previously.
Right.
Okay.
We think or we know for that to be a fact.
It would require 2/3.
You want to read that motion, Justin?
I don't have it.
I can describe it. It's
Yeah, actually, I'd like to hear it from you, Randy.
Right.
To be honest.
So it would be, if I can, and I'm going to try to get it correct, okay? My motion would be to reverse the decision of the chair regarding the amended motion from Commissioner Finsky, allowing us then to suspend the policy for this one motion.
Second. Temporarily.
Temporarily suspend this policy for this one motion.
Yep, that's good.
All right. It's been
Right,
moved and
we'll get
supported.
that.
Okay, all right.
Support or? Yeah.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep. Okay, Justin, you want to call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
Mr. Holtvluwer,
No.
Mr. Zylstra,
No.
Mr. Kyers,
No.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Meplink,
Yes.
Mr. Fensky,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
No.
and Mr. Bergman.
No.
And the motion fails by the 2/3. By the 2/3 standard, the motion, well, yeah, it's a tie, so the motion would
It
fail.
fails either way. It fails under 2/3 or a simple majority.
Okay. So now we're back to the original motion. The original motion is, you want to read that again? Because it was a long time ago. Greg, was that my motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I move to authorize the board chairperson, clerk register to sign the resolution opposing a vaccine mandate from the federal government.
Second. Yep, it's been moved and seconded. So call the roll, please.
No, I've got a question, with Mr. Bergman. I guess I didn't get some clarification on, according to the resolution, when we get to the whereas and so forth, it talks about President Biden's OSHA and so forth, and it talks about it being for employers of 100 employees or more. But then it ends with saying, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners for the County of Ottawa opposes a mandate from the federal government to require all employees to be fully vaccinated or be subject to weekly testing. So are we talking about Ottawa County employees, or are we talking about anywhere in Ottawa County who has 100 or more employees? Because if that's the case, then I don't think it's aligned with all of the reasons why we're proposing this.
The committee's intent, as I recall, was just this applied only to Ottawa County employees.
Only the Ottawa County.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm not sure on that. I don't remember it being just, I thought we wanted to make a statement for the entire county. And planning policy, I know Phil's there, Matt's there. What was your guys' attention?
I thought it was just for county employees, Greg. Yeah.
It would make sense that that's what it would be for.
I mean, like, as Commissioner Garcia said, I mean, that's how it reads. We're talking about an exemption just for ourselves. We're saying we oppose this for Ottawa County government. No, that's what it says. And, like Commissioner Garcia says, I think it was written that way. And, that's a resolution we have in front of us.
All right. I'm confused and bear with me a little bit, but it doesn't specify in the resolution that it says just Ottawa County employees. My intent was, why would everybody be included in this? Is there a reason we would include all county?
Well, I think, but one of the reasons is because it's not included in the resolution. That's the main reason, in my opinion. I think I also what Doug said, that we don't have the authority or even close to the approval opportunity for what employers out in the community are doing, for what Randy's doing, let's say. And then I would further question then is, well, then are we sticking to the 100 people? Or now are we talking about a mom and pop shop who has 2 employees? Are we also saying that as well? And that is when I say that all we're doing is causing confusion.
Amen.
Mr. Chairman, and Frank, what you said, I believe that it's on the resolution, it is about our Ottawa County employees. Okay, and here's why. In order for our board rules that we enacted on resolutions, we need to talk about our employees. Our discussion and our resolution regarding Ottawa County employees speaks volumes to the county, to everyone else. The West Coast Chamber is encouraging every business to go this, literally the exact same resolution that we got from planning and policy, almost without a couple whereases changes, is the same one the chambers put forth and asking the businesses to go for or to include. So we are leading by example. We are making a statement. We're making a statement about Ottawa County employees. Okay. And I think the rest of the community will see that and they'll say, and that's at least where I believe that we make it. That fits within our board rules. Okay. And I think that's where we need to, although I believe the state included, but we can't talk about it because that's already, it included it as well, but because that was my OSHA was included. But anyway, so.
Go ahead, Jim's got it.
If that's what it is, if this is about our own employees, it has to say that in the motion. Can't understand it as being said. It doesn't say anything about our employees.
And that's where I was going with this, that it's unclear.
Totally.
That final
Say it
paragraph.
in there, if that's what it's gonna be. If it doesn't say it in there, we can't pass it.
Yeah, it says it on the second one, really.
Doesn't say it.
It is says that Ottawa County has more than 100
Doesn't say
employees.
it in the motion.
That's the rationale.
That's the resolution.
The resolution is read to us and it does not say our employees. The resolution is right on number 6 on your paper. You can read it for yourself. It does not say our employees.
It doesn't say anything about oppose this until it gets to the last paragraph, and I could be wrong on that. I guess where I'm going with this is that this is ambiguous, in my opinion.
Yes.
And I don't know whether it makes it even legal, seeing that we don't even understand it as board members. And I guess I would ask Doug for his thought on it.
Well, I drafted it, so I can't really criticize it. But look, I tried to draft it so that it would maximize what the board is trying to do. And under your policy, it should be only about employees. I added a lot of facts that are county oriented. Honestly, I think Randy really hit the nail on the head. To be effective, you don't want just a know-it-all resolution. You want something that's very specific that says, look, our employees are tired. They've gone, they're first responders, they're health department officials. They've been through the ringer on COVID. And the last thing we want to do to our employees is put them through this kind of decision making. That's more effective. On top of being consistent with your policy, that's a more effective resolution. If you're just commenting generally about everyone and mandates in general, that's less effective and it would violate your policy. So I think that, as Randy has expressed, it is about our employees, and it's designed to work with Herman Miller's if they're going to pass one, which I presume they'll be saying we don't want a mandate to our employees. And you bundle it with everyone talking about their own situation, that's more effective and that's appropriate given your rules.
Yeah, it's hard for me to understand how one would not read in that this is for Ottawa County employees, where it says right here, Ottawa County cannot afford to lose a significant number of employees, especially law enforcement officers, as a result of the proposed mandate from the federal government. So this looks solid enough for me.
I would have agreed with you, Matt, but I also would have agreed that our policy was also very clear. And apparently it's not.
Well, maybe at some point in time, we need to revisit the policy.
Yep, I agree.
Motion does not state employees.
I believe we'll be addressing it a few times.
I'd like to call the question, Mr. Chair.
Okay, all right. Somebody said to call the question?
Well, yeah, actually, we learned in one of our classes in MAC that even when it's called into question, you need to take a vote
Yes.
whether you can proceed with that.
Right. Right. We're going to call the question and we're going to vote on calling the question. And then we'll vote right after that. So you want to call the
Yes, sir.
roll, please?
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Holtfloor,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra.
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
Mr. Meppling.
Yes.
Mr. Fensky,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
All right, that motion passes.
Okay, you want to call the roll on the motion, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Garcia,
No.
Mr. Meppling,
Yes.
Mr. Holtfloor,
No.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
No.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Fensky,
Yes.
and Mr. Bergman.
No.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. From Finance and Administration, Mr. Fensky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Regarding the 2021 budget adjustments, I will move to approve the 2021 budget adjustments per the attached schedule.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Comments or questions? Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Sir, Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Fensky,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
Mr. Meppling,
Yes.
Mr. Holtfloor,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
and Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Second item, or number 8, regarding the 2021 Ottawa County Appropriation Report. I move to approve the 2021 Ottawa County Apportionment Report.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Comments or questions? Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Fensky,
Yes.
Mr. Meppling,
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Holtfloor,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
and Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding the 2020 administrative and IT cost allocation plans, I move to approve the 2020 cost allocation plan and the 2020 Innovation and Technology Department allocation plan for the implementation of the 2022 budget.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Comments or questions? Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Fensky,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Holtvluwer,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
and Mr. Burton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding the purchase of the Tech 84 body scanner for use at the Adult Detention Center, I move to approve and authorize the board chairperson and clerk register to sign the bid for purchase of a Tech 84 intercept body scanner, including delivery, installation, and training at a cost of $146,500, $139,000 scanner delivery, installation, training, and $7,500 for the first year annual maintenance.
Support. It's been moved and supported. Comments or questions?
Mr. Chair, the sheriff is online. He wanted to indicate that if you had any questions of him.
Anyone have questions? No. Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Holtvluwer,
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink,
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Fenske,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
and Mr. Burton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding the Wyoming Water System 2021 Water System Improvement Bond Issue and Refunding, I move to approve and authorize the board chairperson and clerk register to sign the resolution to authorize the issuance of not to exceed $5,300,000 of water supply bonds and not to exceed $1,750,000 of water supply refunding bonds for the Wyoming water system.
Support. Been moved and supported. I know that there's some comments that were made by constituents. You guys want to address any of those? Or I think we've got Pat is on the line, I believe. You have any questions to ask of him?
Is this the your water pipeline that we were talking about earlier?
Yes, right.
I guess I'm getting some questions as a couple other commissioners regarding will there be an open forum for residents who are concerned about where those pipes will be running through? Some are concerned that it is running right over their property, close to their homes, and some are questioning the route that pipeline may be taken. I don't know what the process is here, whether I know that we have very little say on it as Board of Commissioners beyond this, but I believe that there's public out there or residents who have a lot of questions, and I'd like to know who's going to be responding to them.
Pat, did you hear those questions?
Yes, I did. Can you hear me?
Hey, yeah. Yeah, speak up a little bit more.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's good.
So the question at hand is involving the third transmission main. Right now, a route has been picked, and the city of Wyoming is working with the engineers on negotiating with property owners over easements. And so, yes, this topic of where the pipe is going and how we can get through some tight areas is front and center for the city of Wyoming, who operates the system on behalf of Ottawa County. And so we're starting that process. I have spoken with both Port Sheldon Township's supervisor and Olive Township supervisor, about the route in general. It's following Berry Street. We did have a report that was done about 2 years ago that looked at several routes, and based on a number of factors, the Berry Street corridor was chosen as the best option overall. And so now we have that difficult discussion of obtaining easements. The easement process is certainly one that we can provide input on, but it is a necessary public improvement. So at some point in time, we are going to have to find a route, and I'm hopeful that we can work out any issues with any particular property owner.
So the answer to that question is that you'll be working with the property owners.
Yes, the city of Wyoming is the lead agent, and so we're kind of a secondary agent. The issue in front of you today is really for the financing of the first, some improvements in front of the plant. And it'll kind of set up the standing for the next phase, that third transmission main. So it is a very important question. It's not related to the issue in front of the board right now, but it is something that we're going to have to deal with over the next few months as more property owners get contacted regarding easement requests.
Does that answer your questions? guys?
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Pat.
Thank you.
Ready to vote? Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Zylstra.
Yes.
Mr. Fenske.
Yes.
Mr. Kyers.
Yes.
Mr. Garcia.
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink.
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg.
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung.
Yes.
Mr. Holtvor.
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra.
Yes.
And Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding the 2022 agreement for MSU Extension Services, I move to approve and authorize the board chairperson and clerk register to sign the 2022 agreement for extension services between Ottawa County and MSU Extension at a cost of $256,925.
Support.
Moved, supported. Comments or questions?
She's on mine.
Does Erin want to say anything?
I can, just an overview of the contract itself. It's the same annual agreement that we've presented in years past. This agreement comes with a 2% increase for fiscal year 22, and this is after a 0% increase in the fiscal year 21 for our services. And I'd be happy to give an overview of the contract language, but it is quite similar, in fact, identical to years past.
You'll get to make a presentation sometime in the spring, I believe, correct?
Yeah, our presentation is in March.
Okay, good. We'll look forward to it then. Do you have any questions of Erin? Anybody? If not, thanks, Erin. Ready to vote? Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Garcia.
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink.
Yes.
Mr. Holtvor.
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung.
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra.
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra.
Yes.
Mr. Kyers.
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Fenske.
Yes.
And Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding the contract for website management services, I move to approve and authorize the board chairperson and clerk register to sign the web text service contract at a total cost of $934,032 for 3 years.
Been moved and supported. Comments or questions?
I just have some questions. This has a lot to do with the courts and the police and the clerk's office.
This is our county website. This
Okay.
is maintaining, operating and hosting our county website, myottawa.org.
What was our
Yes.
last contract? How much was that?
You know, I'll have to find that. I don't know the exact amount, but I'll look.
This is not a cheap item, is it?
Mhm.
This was in the budget though, correct? I mean, it's.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Sir, Mr. Terpstra.
Yes.
Mr. Holtvor.
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra.
Yes.
Mr. Kyers.
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung.
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink.
Yes.
Mr. Fenske.
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Garcia.
Yes.
And Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding community mental health personnel request, I move to approve the request from Community Mental Health to add 4 full-time benefited positions at a total cost of $593,181 to be paid for with Medicaid and grant dollars.
Support. Been moved and supported. Comments or questions? Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Kyers.
Yes.
Mr. Holtvor.
Yes.
Mr. Garcia.
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg.
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung.
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra.
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra.
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink.
Yes.
Mr. Fenske.
Yes.
And Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding public health personnel request, I move to approve the request from the Public Health Department to increase 1 health educator from a temporary non-benefited position to a part-time benefited position at a cost of $27,153, paid for by a COVID-19 supplemental block grant.
Is there a second? Okay, comments or questions? Yes?
Is this like another COVID position or what is this?
It's part of a supplemental grant, a COVID supplemental grant, and it's increasing an existing employee's hours by 5 hours a week, which also then requires benefits because we get over 20 hours a week. And it helps with substance abuse, with alcohol, marijuana, vaping, that type of thing, in terms of providing the resources to fight that type of issue. So it's not really, it's part of a COVID grant, but it's really related to alcohol, marijuana, and vaping use. So it's a 5 hours more per week.
Does that go away when the COVID dollars go away?
So when the grant funding goes away, then the hours would be reduced from 24.5 hours back to 19.5, where it is currently today.
How long is that, the COVID dollars there?
This is going from November 1st of this year to September 30th of next year. So 11 months, something like that.
Anyone else? Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Garcia.
Yes.
Mr. Fenske.
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra.
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra.
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink.
Yes.
Mr. Holtfloor.
Yes.
Mr. Kyers.
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung.
Yes.
And Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding declaration of intent to enter into a contract of lease with the Ottawa County Building Authority, I move to approve and authorize the board chairperson and clerk register to sign the resolution of intent to enter into a contract of lease with the Ottawa County Building Authority for the Family Justice Center in the amount not to exceed $30 million.
Moved and supported. Comments or questions?
Just a comment on this, we've been talking about capital improvements with the ARP money, and it looks like, we just sent from MAC to the legislators, so it looks like there's some money in the state also besides that they might have, so that could really make a difference on how much we have to bond for down the road, so.
Yeah, this is just kind of declaring, our intent for the building authority's already declared its intent to issue 30 million in bonds. And this is saying, hey, we're going to pay those bonds back.
Yep.
And then once the bonds are paid back, the county will own the building. We'll take it back from the building authority.
Right. Yep.
But yeah, if to the extent that we find other funds for this project, that would reduce what we would have to borrow for that project.
Correct.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Is it my understanding that if this is approved, there's a 45-day waiting period in which public can enter in comments and et cetera?
Well, in terms of the comments, there's a 45-day right to petition for a referendum. So if within 45 days of, if you guys approve this, it's published within 45 days of that date of publication. If there are electors within Ottawa County that want to put this to a vote, they'd have to collect not less than 10% or 15,000 signatures to put the issue of this on the ballot, the issue of whether we should enter into this contract of lease to essentially pay these bonds.
Would they have 45 days to do so, or?
Yep. So they have to, within 45 days, submit that petition. This is in many bonding issues. 20 plus years, I haven't seen one actually go to a referendum, but the law allows that. So that's why, we'll wait that before we begin, actually issuing any bonds or proceeding any further, we will wait that 45-day period just in case.
All right. Yep.
When we first started talking about this, the total cost was going to be like 12 to 15 million. Then it was to 20. Now it's at 30. Where's the cost? Does this building just keep on getting bigger?
Well, to be fair, the 12 or whatever million, that was really a placeholder that was put in the budget because we had no idea. Originally, we did look at a $20 million. One of the issues here is the cost of construction has significantly increased, both from a materials point of view and a labor point of view. We're estimating right now about $480 per square foot. So the board, as you're aware, established an overall $30 million budget for this, design, construction, financing costs, accounting, legal, everything. And so the idea is when they get through the validation stage by the end of this year, which is sort of the heavy duty design work, they will present to us, here's the cost, the target cost that we say that this will cost to build this building. And if that target cost is within our budget, our intent is to give them the green light to proceed. If that target cost is above what we budgeted, then we've got to take a time out and decide what we want to do at that point, whether we change the budget, scale it back, or hold off on it.
Target price is way lower, right?
The target cost would be below the 30 million because the target cost is really just designing construction. You still have the bonding, financing cost, auditing costs, legal costs, furniture costs. So the 30 million is the out the door price for everything. The target cost obviously has to come in less than that to account for those other soft costs.
Anyone else? Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Dannenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Fensky.
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink.
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra.
Yes.
Mr. Garcia.
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung.
Yes.
Mr. Holtbluer.
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra.
No.
Mr. Kyers.
Yes.
And Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next thing is appointments, none, discussion items, report of the county administrator.
We're having finally a kickoff meeting to replace our card access system here at the county facilities. We had to wait for, like many things with supply chain, it took a long time to get a lot of the parts and pieces here. They've finally arrived, so we're gonna have a kickoff meeting, I think tomorrow. And again, this is to replace all of the existing card access in all of the different facilities. And we're also adding card access to some doors where currently we don't have any card access. So that is starting up tomorrow. I think I may have mentioned, but if not, included in the state budget is the $1.1 million for the groundwater monitoring network that Paul Sachs's department has been instrumental in pursuing. We have a water quality forum that'll be on November 4th from 8, I believe it's from 8 to 12 on Zoom. ARPA, I think Commissioner Kyers brought that up. We're having our next ARPA task force meeting on November 11th, and we're hoping to finalize the process by which we would evaluate applications. We seem to have an agreement, I think, on the criteria upon which applications would be evaluated. And we're narrowing down what major buckets that of this $57 million, we may have some major buckets that we want to put that into, whether it's for county projects, broadband, that type of thing. And again, once the task force narrows that down and finalizes their recommendations, that does go to the Board of Commissioners for approval on all that. And then I believe the 5th annual 231 River Run is this Saturday at 8:30 a.m. And obviously the proceeds, as in the past, are benefiting paved trails and bike paths throughout the county. And I think they've raised about $40,000 to date. So that's what I have.
Good. Okay. Next thing is general information, comments, meetings attended. And I know John took a little bit of your thunder, Frank, but maybe you could comment on the 231 because you're going to run in it.
Well, no, actually, I don't run anymore. I'm way too old for that. But my family and I will be walking at least the 4-mile walk. So I encourage all you folks, if you've got Saturday off, to come out and help Shannon and her group as volunteers. I know John's around there, but he's got things to do. I've done it a few times as a volunteer and I've always enjoyed it. Shannon and her group always do an outstanding job. So I encourage that. While I'm speaking, yesterday, Commissioner Roger and I are members of what we call the Area Community Service Employment Training Council, ACCET. One of the things that we heard there was that currently they've got their Michigan Works office over on Clover Street. And I believe that they are moving their operations to the West Shore Mall within the next year or two, right next to the GRCC building. I would also like to see if it's possible for John, your staff, to maybe arrange a a tour of the new GRCC, facilities, for the board. I know I would be interested in seeing that. I was not able to make the opening of that. So that's all I have.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Friday, my wife and I were able to attend the annual LAUP dinner. I think it was very exciting. Johnny Rodriguez is the new executive director of LAUP, and he was announced as the new executive director at the dinner. I think Johnny and Yade Ramirez, who is the program director, are going to be great leaders for that group. And I think the Holland community has a bright future with the leadership that they have in place now. So it was a great event and great to see new leaders coming in.
I want to just comment on Johnny. I was his principal at West Middle School and Holland High School. And that is probably one of the most outstanding young men that I have encountered. He comes from a great family. He's very articulate, very outgoing, and he's got a good sense about him. So if you haven't met him, meet him.
Bill, are you willing to?
Yeah, I'll
just
comment a
say
little bit
anything
on
about
my-
your trip to
My
Utah?
NACO,
Yeah.
we had our NACO board meeting 2 weeks ago in Utah. It's really interesting that we discuss things that affect the whole United States. One thing the NACO board has done, they hired a new DEI director. There was a lot of talk with the RAC. RAC is Rural Association of Counties, which I'm also a member of, being the president of the state. So they talked a lot about how there is trouble out there and how people like to associate critical race theory with DEI. So RAC is going to do a virtual conference, and I'll make sure I get you guys that gate that we can watch and how we can, make DEI important as it is to the county and to the people here as, people that we serve here, and not, make it all critical race theory, which it's not. So that was interesting. That was very interesting. And just to see how other commissioners exist and how they do their job and get their different opinions. And it's, a lot of the same things are going on right now. They're having a hard time with all this COVID that's going on through their county. And we're not the Long Rangers here. So it's very good. I got another one coming up 2 weeks. I think Steve Curry, the executive director, showed me. So I'll be going about once a month. 1 week out of the whole month to either a NACO board or a state board. So it's good that I get to be a voice from West Michigan as far as what we lobby for and what we, want in West Michigan. So I get to do what our lobbyists do in the feds and in the state. So appreciate your support, guys. Thanks.
What else? Yeah, Greg?
Only because I didn't get a chance to say much today. I just want to comment. I think this is an amazing board, and I'm proud to be associated with each and every one of you. I know we had a contentious meeting today, and we had some stuff on the agenda that we didn't always necessarily agree with. And I know that everybody didn't get what they wanted today, and I understand that. But the important thing for me is where we go from here. Okay, it's important that we continue to do what we do best. We continue to respect each other and move forward with unity. And I trust that will happen after the meeting. Thanks.
Everyone else? Yep.
I want to pass on to all of you, if you see Roger Victory, our senator, tell him to vote no on state bills 597 and 598. Those are the two bills that deal with mental health, and what that's doing, I'll put it in a nutshell, they're pulling in a third party to help manage it. And every year, that third party will grow on it. Eventually, we won't have local control on mental health. So mental health is not something that you can say, take 2 aspirins and call me in the morning. It's a lot bigger than that. So if you do see Roger, mention it to him. Tell him, hey, you got to vote no on these. So anyway.
Anyone else?
Roger, can I mention one other thing? Me and Matt and Greg and I appreciate all you guys donated for memorial tree that we did for Al Vandenberg's father. We went out there Saturday morning and we acted like county officials. Me and Matt dug the hole and Greg watched. It was what it was. But no, we got a really cool picture, and He was really appreciative. So thanks for all your donations for the memorial. So appreciate it.
Anything else? If not, we're on to public comment. This is the second time anyone can comment. You have 1 minute. And Justin, I think you have a list.
Yes, sir. And just a note, Mr. Chair, our visual public comment timer is malfunctioning, so we're going to just do it manually.
Okay, all right.
Gretchen Cosby.
Gretchen?
Actually, we're going to trade places. If you don't mind, I'm going to follow Paula.
Okay.
She's going to take my place. That's okay.
All right.
Paula Baumhoff.
Paula?
Thank you. Gentlemen of the board, I have here letters from concerned citizens who want to see Ottawa County pass a resolution against vaccine mandates and vaccine passports. We support your efforts to vote for a resolution banning vaccine mandates for county employees. Will you consider taking it a step further and protecting medical choice not only for our police, but every school child, public and private employee, healthcare worker, and nursing home patient? We believe that by rescinding the July policy on resolutions, you will be able to once again represent the county's voice and protect our rights. Please stand with us for medical freedom. Thank you.
Thanks, Paula. Who's next?
Gretchen Cosby.
Good afternoon. And I'm going to read the letter that Paula has there, so you know what was signed. And it says, Dear Ottawa County Commissioners, I lift my voice in unison with the Ottawa County residents who have emailed, called, and given public comment regarding the resolution to ban discrimination and segregation based on medical status in Ottawa County. This is a ban on discriminatory vaccine passports. All the citizens, regardless of race, religion, gender, sexual orientation, physical, mental ability, and medical status, have the God-given right to participate in society. It is unconstitutional and draconian to ban individuals from society because they cannot take a vaccination for any reason, whether that reason is religious, philosophical, or medical. This is an important nonpartisan issue. Please support the freedom and pass the resolution for all
Thank you.
Thanks,
citizens.
Gretchen.
Next, we have Donna Mooney.
Hello, commissioners. I've been here before. You know me. Today, I'm going to do something a little different. I am going to give credit where credit is due to those of you who did stand up and oppose any kind of vaccine mandates with your comments today, specifically you, Mr. DeYoung. I really appreciate that. And I know all the people who feel the same way as I do. We do appreciate that. That being said, I think next we really have to work on these the mask mandates, because we still have small children masked up in school, yet you can take them anywhere else, anywhere, the grocery store, a movie theater, a concert, anywhere else, and they don't have to be masked up. Furthermore, we are still moving people into this country from other countries. It can't be that bad. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not bad for some, but as far as if this was truly a pandemic, you'd see.
And next is Emily Underhill.
Thanks, Donna.
Thank you. Let's go, Brandon.
Hi, I'm Emily Underhill from Allendale. I have two comments. First, in Michigan, there are 0 deaths from ages 0 to 10 years old. It is not a pandemic if 20 months pass with 0 deaths. And we want all kids 5 to 11 to get this experimental shot. Second, Ottawa's medical director, Gwen, stated 2 weeks ago that she is concerned that parents are declining a COVID test when they bring their child to the doctor with any type of symptoms. What was her guidance to all the healthcare providers? She stated, quote, "We did some review. I actually sent out a health order to our providers, giving them some guidance last week. And really, basically," she laughed, "assume it's COVID unless proven otherwise. I have to assume if this patient has these symptoms that could be from COVID, That's what it is unless I have a reliable negative test, end quote. She continued to say that, quote, it's to the advantage of the family to go ahead and get a COVID test. Testing positive is kind of like their little superpower. For the next time they get exposed at school, they won't have to quarantine, end quote. So everything in COVID is COVID
Thanks,
until
Emily.
proven negative.
Thank you, Emily.
There's zero end game in that.
We do have a couple of Zoom public comments, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
First is Shelby Visser. And Shelby, if you could just unmute yourself.
Hello,
Hi, Shelby, you're on.
thank you. I'm Shelby Visser and I live in Olive Township. First, I want to applaud those of you who stood up against vaccine mandates today. Now I want to talk about the damages of forcing children to wear masks each day in school. A study was done online that had over 26,000 responses. 67.7% of responders said that they had complaints from their children about wearing their masks at school. Over 2,600 had increased feelings of anxiety over fear of the future and fear of suffocation. Many parents surveyed reporting nightmares from their children as well. 60% reported their children were more irritable than normal and less cheerful. 44% said their kids didn't want to go to school. 31% said their children were sleeping worse. I just have to ask what kind of generation we're raising up to take care of the world when they're sleeping less, have no desire to learn, are anxious, and are also more irritable? Do you think they'll be effective members of society? Do you think that they'll have any desire to succeed in life? Do you think they'll be able to follow the laws of the country and stay out of prison if they don't want to be in school and are more irritable? How will they interact with others in society and form good relationships?
Thank you, Shelby.
Next, we have Alyssa Olson. And Alyssa, if you could just unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name's Alyssa Olson and I live in Jenison on Park North Drive. As I sit here yet another week and listen to many of the other like-minded residents of Ottawa County speaking out against our current elementary age mask mandate, I don't have any real new information to say. I just want the right to choose what's best for my children. Only 16 of the 83 counties in Michigan have these mandates implemented, Ottawa County being one of them. We still have 0 deaths from COVID in the 0 to 19-year-old age range. According to the CDC's website, my child would have a higher chance of being killed in a car accident or drowning than they would dying with COVID. Does that mean they should never ride in a car or go swimming again? No. So let them breathe fresh air while they're at school. We've sat shoulder to shoulder with each other for the last 2 months in packed out stadiums, and I still yet have to hear of any outbreaks from these types of events. I want my voice to be heard that I do not agree with the elementary age mask mandate. If we don't see this ridiculous mandate in the current situation we're in with our health officer and the health department go away, then the commission.
And that is all we have on Zoom, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. With that, this meeting is adjourned.